Welcome to another installment of Deconstructing Babylon, where we discern the signs and symbols of the mystery religion of Hollywood Babylon. I'm the Discerning Clerk, and I use a biblical framework to deconstruct my favorite movies and your recommendations. On that note, I'm so grateful for all the movie suggestions you've been leaving in the comments lately. It's become clear to me that my collection of about 1,000 titles still lacks many of your favorite films. It's also abundantly obvious that I will never run out of movies to deconstruct. Thank you all for being here once again, tuning in to listen to my opinions. As always, please don't take my word for it. Know the word for yourself. That means reading the Bible from the beginning and asking the Most High for His understanding of what is written. Today, we're back to our roots with a quintessential 90s movie and one of my favorite performances from star Al Pacino. You already know we're looking at Scent of a Woman. It is an Academy Award winner, so we know there's something else going on with it. Released in 1992, the Video Movie Guide rates the film with 3.5 stars and says, Al Pacino's over-the-top performance in this coming-of-age movie will delight some viewers and put off others. Pacino plays a foul-mouthed ex-serviceman who takes high school-age companion Chris O'Donnell on a last hurrah in New York City, where the older man intends to wine, dine, and have sex before committing suicide. Rated R. I hate the phrase committing suicide, even before it was such a personal topic for me. The word commit makes it sound like a crime or something that the victim has control over. When suicide is the result of an untreated or undiagnosed mental disorder, it's not a crime and it's not a matter of control. It's literally a tragic symptom of something else going on. Aside from that, I always thought this movie was more about the student than the serviceman. The reviewers do call it a coming-of-age story after all. Anyway, this has a long runtime, so let's get started and see what we see in Scent of a Woman. The first image is a large, sprawling property with historic buildings resembling Downton Abbey. But it's actually a prestigious private boys' preparatory school called Baird. As the students fill the hallways, preparing to visit their families for the Thanksgiving weekend, we meet Charlie Sims, looking for temporary work. Outside, a group of boys sit and remark on the new vintage car driven by headmaster Mr. Trask.
Fabulous.
What's fabulous?
That fine piece of steel you have back there.
You don't think I deserve it?
These 4 boys are some of the uber-privileged at the school, whose fathers have money and never tell their sons no. Harry Havemeyer has arranged for the friends to travel during the school break, skiing in Vermont rather than visiting their families. And Harry invites Charlie to join them.
$1,200 is a little rich for my blood, Harry.
Charlie is not one of the privileged boys and is at the prep school on financial aid and a scholarship. Rather, Charlie would rather make money than spend money he doesn't have. He arrives at a local home, responding to an ad looking for a companion for a shut-in.
Sir?
Don't call me sir.
I'm sorry. I mean, mister.
This is the gruff, tough, rude, and crude Lieutenant Colonel Frank Slade. He doesn't like to be called sir. He doesn't tolerate disrespect. He's very concerned about appearances, even though he's completely blind.
How's your skin, son? I like my aides to be presentable.
Frank has high expectations and is highly intelligent. He refuses to be pandered to, pitied in any way, and demands the respect he believes he's entitled to. Charlie wants the job, but he's summarily dismissed by the colonel. The woman who placed the ad is Frank's niece, and she tells Charlie he can't be fired because he's the only candidate. Back at Baird, as Charlie locks up the library where he works, I guess, he witnesses Harry Havemeyer and his minions climbing a ladder and setting something up on a light standard.
What are you doing? Keep your voice down! I'll tell you about it in the morning!
With Charlie is George Willis, another friend of Harry's who seems to have no knowledge of what his mischievous friends are up to. The next morning, the entire student body and faculty learns what exactly they were doing. George and Charlie are summoned to the headmaster's office and are questioned about who and what they saw the night before. Of course, neither of the students are willing to snitch, so Mr. Trask escalates to compel them.
I will expel you both.
Before everyone leaves for the long weekend, George subtly threatens Charlie that he has much to lose if he tells the truth, and not to get their parents involved. But Charlie goes to work as Frank's caretaker for the weekend, and he assumes he'll be in one spot for the entire time. But it becomes quickly clear that Frank has other plans.
Colonel, where are we going?
Where are we going? Freak Show Central,
Where's that?
New York City.
Of course, New York City. Let's all keep our eyes peeled for the Twin Towers. On the plane, Frank speaks freely about women. At first, poetically, but then he reveals his primary focus is physical pleasure. And despite being blind, in his mind's eye, he remembers vividly every encounter.
I guess you really like women.
Oh, above all things.
Frank has spared no expense for this trip. First-class flight, penthouse at the Waldorf Astoria, limo rides, expensive dinners, generous tipping. And none of it makes Charlie any less anxious about his impending trouble at school.
To tell or not to tell? Or it's your ass? Hmm?
How'd you know that?
At dinner, Frank lays out his plan for the weekend, which includes all manner of the finer things in life, until he plans to end his own life.
You should try these rolls, Charlie. I used to dream about them when I was at Fort Huachuca.
Frank drops a lot of names and locations from his military career, but if you're following the narrative around the murder of Charlie Kirk, then you know that Fort Huachuca and who was there and what was discussed on September 8th has been in question lately. The next morning, Charlie gets a hold of George out in Vermont, and the colonel doesn't miss a thing.
Yeah. Say no evil, hear no evil.
Frank schools Charlie about generational wealth, explaining that George will most definitely tell his father about the trouble at school, despite their previous agreement to keep it quiet. Frank's next step in his plan is to visit his older brother.
Oh, does he know I'm coming?
He doesn't know I'm coming.
His presence with his brother's family is not so welcome. Frank doesn't seem to have a filter between his brain and his mouth, and that makes the relatives more than uncomfortable. Thankfully, there are no children at this gathering when Frank regales everyone with his sexual escapades.
It's a beautiful story.
Frank's nephew, Randy, tells the table the story of how Frank went blind, though everyone but Charlie has already heard the story more than once. And we learn Frank is at fault, a drunken mistake that changed his life forever, but didn't slow down his drinking.
God doth have a sense of humor.
Maybe God thinks some people don't deserve to see.
I'm definitely going to be speaking about blindness at the end, but for now, let's move on. The next morning, Frank reminds Charlie of his endgame, and the prep school senior is not prepared to know how to handle this, so he does his best.
You forgot the one in the chamber.
Charlie tells Frank that Mr. Trask, the headmaster at Baird, has offered him a bribe to tell him what he knows. Frank's advice has always been to take the deal, to cover his own neck, to roll over and tell them what he knows.
It's just some things you just can't do.
Out at lunch, Frank puts on the charm that comes so easily to him when they meet Donna. At first, Frank thinks she could be a lovely companion to Charlie, as she's closer to his age than to Frank's. But he takes over anyway to dance the tango with her.
When you see Charlie dance.
Donna's companion finally arrives and he whisks her away. Frank only has one more thing on his bucket list before he dies, and that is to make love to a beautiful woman. Charlie waits in a limousine while Frank visits a high-priced escort, and while he waits, he calls George again to finalize their plan at school.
Your father? I thought we were going to keep our parents out of this.
The next day, the two should be heading back home, but Frank has a plan and a timeline. He'll send Charlie back alone and carry out his own immediate death. But Charlie doesn't want to leave him alone, and he definitely doesn't want Frank to die.
Yeah, Colonel Slade, what do you say? Let's go for a ride, huh?
What kind of ride?
The unlikely pair managed to get Frank's dream car, a Ferrari, which I didn't realize until now is a common thread from my last deconstruction, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Anyway, Frank's dream isn't just a slow ride-along, but to drive it himself. But he's blind.
He's killed!
Don't blame me, Charlie. I can't see.
When they get pulled over, we get our first shot of the Twin Towers. Emergency 911, the boys in blue, and the Twin Towers.
And you, soldier?
The name is Police Officer Gore.
After all this excitement, Frank starts to lose control, and Charlie struggles to help him. They return to the hotel where Frank will most definitely complete his plan. He sends Charlie out on an errand, leaving the depressed colonel all alone. Charlie realizes this and returns to their room to find Frank dressed in his dress uniform and loading his weapon. They give us some mirror symbolism with the decorated colonel, a shadow of the man he once was.
You're in no position to disagree with me, boy.
Charlie negotiates with Frank and stands firm on his integrity, desperate to get the weapon out of the hands of the colonel. The standoff continues, and Frank turns the gun on Charlie now. They are both scared, but Frank is hopeless for a future. Finally, Frank gives up and lives on. Upon reflection, he confesses to Charlie that all he's wanted in his life was the love of a good woman, one who would stay with him and maybe give him children, which is probably why he considers Charlie a son.
Oh, Charlie, why are you all alone in this thing? Where's your father?
Frank, of course, refers to the disciplinary committee that Charlie will face at Baird the next morning, where the co-conspirator George will most definitely have his father's support and powerful influence. Charlie makes it back in time and takes his seat in front of the entire student body, including the 3 boys he's meant to accuse. George is there with his father, and the room goes silent when Mr. Trask enters. And as he makes his opening remarks, Frank comes in, much to the surprise of Charlie.
This is Mr. Frank Slade, Lieutenant Colonel, United States Army, retired.
Mr. Trask questions George first, who is reluctant to give up his friends, but his father has clearly persuaded him to do so. Once George gives up the names, it is upon Charlie to confirm them.
They were the size and shape of most any Baird student, sir.
Mr. Trask decides he won't punish any named student or witness, but will punish Charlie for his silence. But Frank will not be silent.
Because I say you are killing the very spirit this institution proclaims it instills.
After a moving speech, the committee briefly convenes and makes a diplomatic decision.
Mr. Charles Sims is excused from any further response to this incident.
Hoorah!
This feels like justice, as Charlie and Frank leave in seeming victory. And there appears a glimmer of hope for Frank and his desire for a real relationship. The duo get back to Frank's, a place he never intended to return to. Yet he does so with a lightness and love we didn't see before.
Oh, come on, Francie. I think we should make up. Don't you think it's about time we made up?
The last image is the limo, carrying Charlie back to Baird, disappearing behind a bridge. Typically, when a film is considered a coming-of-age story, it refers to literal youths growing in their awareness, understanding, and maturity. And that's truly what I thought when I read the synopsis and considered the characters. Since we are looking at high school students, we ought to be able to assume they are coming of age. And yet it was the retired colonel who had the greatest arc, the one who truly stepped into his age. The title of this movie, Scent of a Woman, refers to the extrasensory perception Frank has with nearly every woman he comes into contact with, and his uncanny ability to name their fragrance. But it was more like a parlor trick in order to charm these strangers, a way to ingratiate himself to them and try to bed them eventually. Only when all hope seemed lost did Frank even speak of a woman like a real person, and not just a prized possession. It makes me wonder if his character had ever been in love in his whole life. What was his relationship like with his mother? Did he truly desire to be a husband and father, or just a scoundrel and disgraced soldier?
I'm in the dark here! You understand? I'm in the dark!
Blindness in the Bible is a spiritual affliction, one that Messiah came and miraculously healed numerous times. Being in the dark, so to speak, is being a slave to sin, and faith in Messiah is freedom from that, as he is the light. The light that shines in the darkness, and the dark cannot comprehend it. That's why Frank is so confused and so hopeless. And all the pleasures of the flesh won't bring his sight back. It won't give him hope, and it doesn't comfort him. Now, they did show us the Twin Towers, but I didn't see much duality aside from that. If anything, it was more father-son symbolism. Even then, what message were filmmakers trying to send? I don't want to dismiss this, and I don't want to overstate it, but the Charlie Kirk references seem to be something. Charlie, the young up-and-coming prodigy who may be headed into a career of politics given the prep school. Frank, the blind, hardened serviceman who becomes his mentor, and references not only Fort Huachuca, but Lyndon Johnson several times. If you didn't know, Lyndon Johnson was vice president when JFK was assassinated and became the nation's 36th president shortly after. 3 6s. Charlie Kirk has been compared to JFK more than once, and the conspiracies surrounding both their deaths are talked about often. In the end, Do you think what Charlie Sims did was noble? Was it correct for him to protect his classmates when they were clearly guilty of intentional harm and damage? In my opinion, the braver thing to do would have been to be honest, to tell the truth and speak their names. Those boys weren't really Charlie's friends. They weren't wrongfully convicted of anything. And they couldn't protect him. If anything, keeping their secret and holding his tongue makes him more like them than he seemingly wanted to be. Now he's just a part of the boys' club and can be trusted to say nothing, even the truth when it's warranted. And all this was celebrated when it should be disappointment. Well, that's enough for today. Thank you for enduring to the end. Give the video a thumbs up if you agree and a thumbs down if you disagree. Remember, these are just my opinions, and I'd love to hear yours in the comments below, as well as any recommendations you have for movies I should deconstruct in the future. Subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more content like this, but don't follow me. Follow the one who saves you. And until next time, keep looking up.
Did you ever have the feeling that you wanted to go and still have the feeling that you wanted to stay?